struggled to find joy herself, so she'll definitely be missed. So what we're doing at Cybin is we're focusing on developing treatments for mental health disorders, and we're doing that by modifying derivatives and analogs of classical psychedelic drugs, so psilocybin and DMT, that we've known about for several decades, 7 decades. But there are many challenges to turning those molecules into therapeutics, and many limitations. And so those modifications that we're making are designed to improve the experience for the patient, to make the molecules more scalable for health systems, and also to make them reimbursable, because frankly, without reimbursement, there's not good patient access. And when you consider that there are 900 million people around the world that suffer from some form of depression or addiction or eating disorder, patient access is front of mind for us, of course. So psychedelics work in a very different way than our current approaches. And Deepak, you mentioned a few approaches to depression that have really not been successful. There is a very large study called the STAR-D study that showed that SSRIs like Prozac, that we've all come to know, are no better than placebo over the long term for mild to moderate depression. So really they're not working, and they're kind of, some people describe them as chemical handcuffs. And what psychedelics are more like a chemical intervention, in that we've seen in many studies at Johns Hopkins and NYU and Imperial College, some very prestigious institutions, that after just 1 or 2 doses of psilocybin, many patients, about 70% or so, are free from their depressive symptoms for 5 or 6 months at a time, from just 1 or 2 doses. So no more daily pills, no more chemical handcuffs, but an intervention that can change someone's life. And we've seen these molecules have potential in depression, but also addictions as well. And you can imagine that kind of intervention for someone that's addicted to tobacco or opioids has the potential to completely change their life and change their habits and get out of the bad habits, make fresh connections with family and friends or whatever. So yes, we have a lead compound that is about to go into an FDA study. We're applying to the FDA in the next few weeks to take an analog of psilocybin. It'll be the first time that a psilocybin analog has gone into a phase 2 human study in major depressive disorder. So we're hoping that we see similar results that we saw in those academic studies, because I think there's a potential to really change the paradigm of how we treat mental health.
Srini, when you reflect, listening to this conversation, Deepak's perspective on coming from the light of awareness, the research in psychedelic, you being as a psychiatrist, what's your thoughts?
So I think there are a lot of sort of challenges that we're facing currently. I think one of them is that psychiatric diagnoses have a high degree of reliability, but very low validity. So major depressive disorder is a kind of heterogeneous condition which may or may not respond to different kinds of drugs. And so I think the first challenge we have to take on is how do we redefine these syndromes? And I think one way to redefine them is by means of who responds to the medication. So if you say you have a medication and people are responding to that, rather than pretending that major depressive disorder exists, you could say you gather a group of people with a general collection of symptoms, but really this is the group that responds to this medication. So I would say that would be my first comment. I think my second comment is, I think underneath what Deepak is talking about is the fact that medications, I think, offer a lot of promise to take people out of a sense of stuckness. But I think, as you are also sort of recognizing within the company because of your interest in psychotherapy as well, there's work to be done after that. And that after you are removed from the sense of stuckness comes this process of interacting with what Deepak is calling the light or the joy or the bliss. And I think that work is a different kind of work. And so what I'm looking forward to is all of these different fields working together, where pharmacology can work together with spiritual approaches and where we can transform what's happening in medicine so that it's not just compartmentalized, but that they can work together to remove people from their stuckness, but then start a process of awareness that's connected to joy.
So, if we can give people the experience of joy spiritually, but now we've seen sometimes it's psychedelics, AI, and VR. If you give somebody an experience, a virtual reality experience, somebody who has, say, an eating disorder or autism, and they look at themselves as normal, their neural networks rewire. So when we're looking at the metaverse, actually, and looking at exploring these different aspects and bringing them together, then you can enhance the experience. Right now, for example, the immersive experiences that we are designing, those are pretty psychedelic without the psychedelic. If you combine all of that, and then all this stuff about vagal stimulation, digital therapeutics. I mean, I'm just looking at something right now that you can plug in any frequency of ultrasound and actually direct serotonin, opiates, oxytocin, all of that just through the frequency of the sound wave. So, and then vagal stimulation through mechanical means as well. I just looked at something which uses auricular branch of the vagus nerve. It's innocuous, but in Ayurveda, you massage the vagus nerve, and these guys have figured out how to put a little electrode there. We don't even feel it. Does the same thing. So there's a revolution going on right now. Pranasha.
I want to ask you a quick question, Deepak. One is, sorry, Doug, do you want to comment something? Or?
I was just going to say that Srini is right. There's no one size fits all.